Hey, we're live streaming from Bangalore, India today, and we're going to be uh, going to New York. No, we're going to be going to New Jersey, which is in the tri state area of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. And today we're going to be hanging out in North Caldwell, New Jersey. Seems like a very inconspicuous part of the world, but it holds a lot of significance because this is home to the character Tony Soprano. It's from the show The Sopranos. Like I'm sure a lot of you know, it's a show that I'm very fond of. I've been watching it a lot during this lockdown period, and I just wanted to check out the neighborhood, see and experience the places where the fictional character comes from, just get an idea of how world is in his part of the hemisphere. So let's pick a street and go. Looks like a lot of nice big independent houses, a lot of manicured lawns, lots of trees. Well, that's most of Jersey because it's so big and it's so sparsely populated. Sparsely populated, I say, because I'm from India, and in India you see too much population. So let's pick a street. This all of this looks nice. I like this little tree here, and I like this little roundabout that they've made here. So I think we can pick this street. Let's go to Street View. It gives us the opportunity to go here. Ooh, it's a really pretty street. It seems like it's somebody's driveway. It seems like it's somebody's driveway, and this is the back of the house. Nice little umbrella for people to chill. So, The Sopranos is something that I really like because it's nothing short of a great epic. It's as good as Homer's Iliad or Odyssey or closer home. It's got the kind of range and depth as the Ramayana or the Mahabharata. Predominantly because of the number of themes it tackles. There's just such a wide array of themes and breadth of themes that you're left wondering how someone can create such a large magnum opus. And a lot of credit goes to creator of the show, David Chase, and his ability to kind of like weave that world into it, and start with and tell it through the perspective of all the people. So a quick introduction to The Sopranos. It's about a mob boss called Tony Soprano. He is the head of the New Jersey mafia. The Italian American community kind of are known for mafia activities in places like New Jersey and New York. Of course, they also have dealings in Atlantic City. They have known to have had dealings in the West Coast as well, closer to places like the Valley, and also places like what is that place where all the gambling happens? I keep forgetting it. Las Vegas. So there's a mob there as well, but we're concerning ourselves with the New Jersey mob in this particular show. That is such a beautiful house. I like how the roof looks. So Tony Soprano is the de facto head of the New Jersey mob. He comes from a family of mobsters. They're called the Sopranos. He inherits the throne of boss from his best friend, who we see die in the first season. His name is Jackie Aprile, and the Aprile and the Soprano families have been managing mafia activities in the north of Jersey for several years now. That's what's established. But the interesting thing is that despite being arguably one of the most powerful men in Jersey, we see that Mr. Soprano is not happy, and he has several issues that seem to plague him, and a lot of it is in his own head. So we're very quickly introduced to the premise of the show, which is that it's about a really powerful mafia boss who goes to therapy, and the format of the show works in a way that Tony does things and then he talks about them with his therapist, whose name is Dr. Melfi, and she's played by Lorraine Bracco, who was in Martin Scorsese's pivotal movie The Goodfellas. She played Ray Liotta's wife, and so it's a good change of fortunes for her character, because she's finally not part of an Italian American mob family, but instead she's from a well-to-do white collar family that kind of like she deals with psychotherapy, and she is Tony Soprano's doctor, and we see how Tony goes from general distrust towards her. He blatantly lies to her. He doesn't want to tell her the truth, and he still wants to get the best out of therapy. So you can see that he's struggling with this decision to, seek help, but he still does so despite all the shortcomings that he's dealing with. And The Sopranos, again, like the show's name, is also about every other character named Soprano. There's his wife Carmela, who's a devout Christian, who we see as the show progresses is not very happy with the marriage to Tony, but being the good devout Christian that she is, she fights with the conflict of whether she wants to stay with Tony or she wants to leave him and explore a life of her own. And so that's a conundrum that she faces. This driveway looks very similar to Tony's house, and for some reason they've kind of like blocked it off. I get the feeling that this could actually be the Soprano house. Maybe I'm wrong here, but it does seem very, very familiar. We could probably go to an episode of The Sopranos and check out in the opening credits when they show Tony driving up his driveway. Maybe we're right about the fact that this is Tony's house. Anyway, it was one of these big beautiful houses with like an upsloping driveway and a big house, and there's a backyard and there's a pool by the house. So it does seem very familiar, all these surroundings from what we've seen on the show. We'll trace our way back and try and explore some other neighborhood. Really, really pretty houses. I like how much space there is for everybody. I'm pretty sure in the winter it must also be a little isolating, and for me, I've always been astounded by the fact that how few people are on the streets in the West. It's eerie. It's extremely disconcerting. So coming back to talking about The Sopranos, Carmela is fighting the good fight. She's hanging in there. She's making sure Tony and the kids are being taken care of. They have two children. There's Meadow, who is the elder one, and she's a daughter, and the son is Anthony Jr., AJ, who is I'm guessing 6 years younger than Meadow. And their lives are of significance to us as well. We notice that in the first season, Meadow is just coming of age. She's going to graduate high school. She is contemplating going to college, and she's very, very keen to study. And it's an interesting change because you see that, like, you kind of get the feeling that everybody around her aren't very literate, but Meadow is very, very keen to complete her education, and we eventually see her go to college. And later on in the show, it's very nice how Chase has introduced her own conflict. Oh, we noticed something interesting here. Little baby is very interested in the Google car. The dude is not. Is that earphones in his hands? I think he wants to put on earphones. Approaching vehicle. UPS delivery vehicle. Right. So we were talking about Meadow. What I really like about Meadow is how her conflict feels so organic when it when it hits us with full force later on in the show, somewhere in the third season, where she starts becoming a little existential about why she had to be born to a mafia boss, and she we see her exploring themes of morality as the show progresses. Whereas if you were to look at someone like Carmela, she's exploring themes of conservatism versus liberalism. And as for Tony, he's just seeking the pursuit of happiness, and he has no reason to be unhappy, but he's deeply unhappy as a person. And the reason why Tony's character is so relatable is predominantly because of James Gandolfini's performance. The creator David Chase has spoken endlessly about what James Gandolfini did with the role, which is that he brought to it this sense of empathy, despite all the things that Tony does on the show, and he does a lot of awful things. You see him kill people, you see him peddle drugs, you see him launder money, you see him do all the things that one that would irk one's morality, and yet you can't help but feel deeply for Tony Soprano, and that's predominantly because of the fact that James Gandolfini's eyes say so much, despite him not saying anything. There's this is, of course, I'm paraphrasing what David Chase has said, but there's this immense sadness in his eyes that that tell you so much, that speak volumes. And James Gandolfini did a fantastic job in The Sopranos. He was 35 when he was cast in the show, and there's a character who plays the role of Silvio Dante, who was supposed to be cast as Tony Soprano, but Gandolfini beat him to it. And Vincent Chase talks very fondly about how Gandolfini kind of elevated the show, and he also talks about how the show wouldn't perhaps be made if it were to have been commissioned in today's times, because Gandolfini is the most unremarkable lead character you'll see in primetime television. He's fat, he's bald, he's not attractive, and yet The Sopranos lasted 6 seasons and is considered to be arguably one of the greatest shows on TV. I think we've hit a dead end here, so we're going to turn around. Right. So coming back to Tony, I've always felt that the reason why I like James Gandolfini's role so much is because he has his ability to portray a certain sense of vulnerability and kindness through his expressions. And despite the fact that he's a mafia boss, and you know that he's going to do what he needs to do when push comes to shove, you still don't feel like not trusting him. You feel like taking him into your confidence. You feel like talking to him. You feel like he's someone who'd listen, and you'd feel that behind his eyes is a certain, he's letting on very little, but there's a lot of there's a mountain of emotion and honesty behind what he's letting on. So it was a very sincere performance from James Gandolfini. He did a few more things after The Sopranos, but his life was brutally cut short because of a heart attack that he had while he was vacationing with his family in Italy in his hotel room. It's one anecdote from there is that his son Michael actually found him passed out, and then he alerted the authorities, and then he was later declared dead. And David Chase is, as we speak, currently working on a prequel to The Sopranos called The Many Saints of Newark, which kind of goes back to the days of Tony Soprano's father and Junior Soprano and all the people who are referenced in the show, but we don't really know the backstory of. So that's going to be an interesting thing, and it's going to come out later. I think this year or maybe next year. I hear that it has been delayed because of the virus. And what's interesting there is that there is David Chase has written into the movie a character, the character of Tony Soprano, a young Tony Soprano, which is interestingly being played by Michael Gandolfini, who is James Gandolfini's son. So I think that little gesture makes the whole thing come full circle, I guess. And there are some, if you guys check it out on the internet, there are a few photos of Michael as the young Tony Soprano, and he looks very, very similar to his father. So I'm really looking forward to that film, and hopefully that's going to be a good experience. I think we're retracing our steps, because I think we saw this baby and this dude and this UPS van. So we should probably go some other direction. A big reason why I like The Sopranos is it's a great example of how, as a writer, you can use your vulnerability to create great art. David Chase was seeing a therapist around the time when he was trying to conceptualize a TV show. The role of Dr. Jennifer Melfi is loosely based on his own therapist and his experiences with therapy. And Livia Soprano, the character of Tony Soprano's mother, who gives Tony such a hard time in the show, is loosely based on David Chase's own mother. And you can see that the equation is so complex, and it's so layered, primarily because of the fact that we can assume that Chase lived this life, and he saw this life up close. Of course, not the mob boss part of it, but the complex relationship with the mother, the experiences with therapy, the cases of depression. I'm pretty sure much like Tony, David Chase must have also experienced a few panic attacks himself. So like Guillermo del Toro said in the Oscars that just went by, I guess the personal is the most creative, and that's exactly what Chase does with The Sopranos. We're still in North Caldwell. We're in Willowbrook. Uh, the pretty houses are still amongst us, and lots of space. Let's see if, as we progress, we move to more smaller houses and more people. We're yet to see our second person. We have just seen the baby in the stroller and the parent. Hopefully we spot another human being soon, because this is feeling eerily isolated. Should we turn right or should we go straight? I think we should turn right. Let's see what the sign says. Skyline Drive. Okay, we'll go to Skyline Drive. One of my favorite things, and in fact it's something that influenced me in my own writing for the work I do, is Chase's use of David Chase's use of surrealism. He's especially in the second season, if I'm not wrong, he uses plenty of dreams and surreal sequences to kind of delve into the psyche of the characters and what they're going through. And it's such a remarkable tool, and it also allows you as an artist to kind of like explore the absurd and like not really justify what's happening, much like our dreams and our subconscious, which isn't governed by any rules or any rules of time space continuum. So if you just go on YouTube and you check out the Sopranos dream sequences, you'll have a great time because they're so well executed, and they also feel very faithful to how dreams look like. You know, you'll feel like, yes, this makes a lot of sense. This is exactly how a dream is, and it's something that that I want to take a leaf out of and like use as a tool to kind of explore the psyche of the characters that I'm writing, because a lot of what the character is not saying kind of gets buried in the subconscious, and as because cinema is such a powerful medium, and you can explore through visuals what you don't need to say through words. You can use the trope of a dream to kind of like exposition more about what your character is feeling to the audience, and it won't feel like you're breaking too many rules. It feels congruous to the character. Of course, it also depends on the kind of tone that your show has, and in certain cases, maybe such a trope might feel a little incongruous to the kind of tone that you've been using in the show. But I guess it's a gradual shift, and you'll have to think about how you want to do it. You can work it out. I'm pretty sure you can. Another driveway, someone's house, open window. I wish someone was just standing here staring at the Google car, but no, we still haven't found another person yet. I have a tendency of kind of like surfing by looking down on the streets, and I don't really enjoy it. I try and keep as much of a eye line view as possible. When I'm surfing New York City, I'm always like this because you can see like buildings as far as the eye can see. But for New Jersey, I think this is good. Lots of nature, lots of open spaces, lots of trees, lots of houses, but no people. I think I'm going to stop the stream as soon as I see another person, because that seems like a good yardstick to stop, because I think I've said almost everything that I wanted to say about the Sopranos. The writing process of the Sopranos was very interesting to learn about. David Chase talks about how in the writer's room he used to have a writer's assistant who used to basically log everything that was being said, and she'd probably type it out, or she'd probably be recording it. But at some point of time he realized that the kind of conversations that were happening in the room was not conducive to have an assistant, because there was a lot of racism, there was a lot of misogynistic comments that were being passed, and there's a lot of room for people to misunderstand such things, and especially a writer's assistant who doesn't know how the process works might feel that she or he is amidst a bunch of bigots who in the sake of art are saying shit. So he talks about the process where he kind of like got rid of the assistant after a point of time, and it was just the writers. Some very interesting tidbits about the writing team. If you remember, there's Matthew Weiner. Matthew Weiner went on to make Mad Men, and he started his career, or kind of his career got a big boost because of his involvement with the Sopranos. He has testified to honing his skills as a writer while being under Chase in the Sopranos writing room. There's also Terence Winter. Terence Winter, if I'm not mistaken, went on to write movies for Scorsese. I may be wrong, but I think he wrote Wolf of Wall Street. So that's a heavy duty writers room in there. Of course, one of the other writers is also Michael Imperioli. Michael Imperioli plays the role of Christopher Soprano, who is Tony Soprano's nephew, and his role expands as well as we go delve deeper into the show. He has a very interesting arc. He is when the show begins, we learn that Christopher knows more about the mob from watching movies than actually being part of part of the mafia family, and and when he becomes a made man, sometime in the third season, he realizes that it's tougher in real life than in the movies, and that's a very nice little hat tip to expectation versus reality and life and art. So you see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's like so many themes that The Sopranos explores that it feels like an all-encompassing work of art. We found our second person. Our woman is on a walk, and this is a great time for me to uh, sign off. And this was a very fun little stream to do, because Sopranos is something that's very close to my heart. So until the next stream, and until I find another topic to talk about, this is goodbye. Thank you for watching.